the way the platform AI works is it's going to find people who are most likely to get that white paper download. And at a large enough scale, you're not going to repeat the same conversion rate. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse as like it tries to get the easier and easier and easier conversions. So many people are trying to market products that don't have product market fit, and they don't know who their audience is, and they don't know what need they're solving. And that's a problem that a lot of people just sort of ignore. You can do this at a small scale, but the thing is, like, I've worked with so few small to medium-sized businesses that are even considering this as an option.
With me today, I have Patrick Gilbert. He's the CEO at Adventure Media, and he's the author of the book, Join or Die. And today we'll talk about ads, today we'll talk about marketing, persuasion, and the psychology behind all of that. Patrick, how are you feeling today?
I'm incredible. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Now, before we go into all those things, I want to understand a little bit more about you and who you are and how you got to this place. So walk me through the journey. How did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
So I grew up around retail. So my dad worked in retail in New York, and I worked at a small business when I was in high school and through college. And I was being funneled toward like large big box retailers through college. But I studied marketing, and I've always loved marketing and consumer psychology. And I had a manager at an internship that gave me this book called Why We Buy, which is about in-store psychological tactics that retailers take to increase the basket size and increase conversion rates in store. And I became obsessed with that concept. And at the same time, digital marketing was becoming a thing. So Google Analytics and like everything that happens with like all of a sudden the birth of digital marketing was just the more real-time, faster, larger scale version of like in-store retail optimization. So I quickly realized in-store retail was not for me. I was obsessed with digital marketing and advertising, and eventually, became obsessed with paid media specifically. So I kind of, the beginning of my career, I meandered around. I actually started at a nonprofit in healthcare. I worked on Wall Street for a minute, and then I ended up in an agency. So Adventure Media was a startup. Isaac Radanski is our founder, and I was the third or fourth employee in the door in 2015. And we were kind of just hacking it together at the beginning, but 10 years later, we have I think a legitimate business. We have, close to 50 employees in 3 offices across the United States. And we've worked with some great clients, and here we are. So it's been a very, very long journey, but I think what it's always come down to is, like an obsession with psychology and consumer behavior and being able to keep up with the latest technology and figure out how different trends influence all of those things. So that's sort of the journey and what keeps me up at night.
Fantastic. Now it's interesting that from the beginning, what opened your mind was that book, Why We Buy. Do you see that one being used today, or is it something that it kind of shifted and changed too much that you can kind of look at it more like a conceptual book as opposed to practical?
No, that book is incredible. It's kind of a short read, but if you read that book and then you walk into a Trader Joe's, your brain is going to explode. Because it seems like Trader Joe's is following all of the principles of that book to a T, in particular wide aisles. Trader Joe's has the lowest, don't quote me on this because maybe this is an outdated metric, but like at least as of a couple of years ago, Trader Joe's has the lowest revenue per square foot of the entire retail and grocery industry. And that's like the main metric people look at for retail. It's like how much revenue you're doing per square foot, but they do it intentionally because they want people to really enjoy the shopping experience. They want people to hang around and browse, and they want to double back into different aisles. And one of the principles that comes out of the book is what the author calls the Buttbrush factor. And this guy made a career just like watching videotape of people just shopping in stores. And he came up with this insight of like, if you're like in a CVS and somebody goes to walk by you and they just kind of brush your shoulder, the likelihood of you just like panicking and leaving the store, like it increases dramatically. And you watch tape thousands and thousands and thousands of time. It's like, okay, like make aisles wider, but that conflicts with what the CFO wants, where he's like, we need to maximize the revenue per square foot. So like let's cram as much product into these aisles as possible. And that's where there's always a conflict between marketing and the financial folks and the people that want to make nice spreadsheets. Is like, no, like consumer psychology, like people don't like feeling claustrophobic or rushed. Like you need to make a comfortable shopping environment. And I actually think and I say this all the time, particularly to like younger people that are getting into the space, The best thing that you can do to make yourself a successful marketer is to like study the principles and study retail. Because like what we do today is just like a larger scale version of it. But there's so much more data, and there's so much more research that has been conducted on shopping behaviors and consumer psychology that goes back the last 100 years. But so many people are just like, well, what's going on in the last 2 years? It's just not as relevant. So yes, I definitely encourage people to kind of go back to the basics, read books like Why We Buy, read books like Cialdini's Principles of Marketing, read books like, what is it? The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Jack Reese and Al Reese and Jack Trout, whatever it is. Read those books, because like if you want to be a marketer today, like those principles are more important than ever.
When we talk about the principles, I think you've mentioned in the past the 4 Ps. How do the 4 Ps work in your models and in the stuff that you do for your clients with advertising and all these things?
So the 4 Ps of marketing are, I hope I got this right, product, price, place, promotion. And it's important when you say that product comes first and promotion comes last. So many people are trying to market products that don't have product market fit, and they don't know who their audience is, and they don't know what need they're solving. And that's a problem that a lot of people just sort of ignore. But so much of the digital space is focused exclusively on promotion, right? Like D2C marketing. It's this colossal industry that's blown up over the last couple of years, right? As everyone now has a Shopify store and access to Amazon and all these different things. And nearly everyone you talk to that's like, I'm a D2C marketer, is like overly focused on promotional strategy and like discounting. And it's a race to the bottom, and none of these people are building sustainable profitability over time. So the 4 Ps connected together are so essential if you want to really build a sustainable business. And again, like when you learn about these concepts, you learn about them in the traditional sense, where like people had to get in a car and drive to a store to buy your products, right? But all of these things still apply today. It's just under a different lens. And if you just kind of think creatively about it, it's like, okay, well, place is where can someone buy my products, but also where am I advertising my products? So all of those things are choices that I think strategically minded marketers need to make. And it's not just about like, are you running 15% off or 10% off? Like that stuff is like the least important thing that so many people spend way too much time on.
When you're mentioning like race to the bottom, I think we all kind of know this fact, because there was a guy that I talked with. He was setting up Amazon shops. I was like, why are you even setting up Amazon shops? I'm like, you have so much of these other things that are happening with drop shipping and everything. It's like, look, at the end of the day, you're gonna look at the product and you will go to Amazon. And if it's on Amazon, you have a very good policy or brand, or you will get it the next day and you will get it from Amazon. Now, then step down might be Temu or a version of whatever. But your first one is, and that's why I set them up. When you hear that story, what do you learn from that as a business owner that you can apply for like marketing and ads? How do you capture that behavior?
So it's funny because I've met so many business owners that started on Amazon, and then they're like, well, I'm paying too much in fees, and also I don't own the customer relationship, including I don't own the customer data. So like I can't like send email marketing to these people. So there's thousands or hundreds of thousands of merchants out there that want to diversify off of Amazon, and they think it's a lot easier than it really is. And then the opposite's true. And I think like I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Amazon, because like, look, if your goal as a business owner is to maximize profitable revenue, and if a cohort of your customers are, it's not as if people are only going to buy from Amazon or not. It's just the likelihood of them buying from you at all dramatically increases if they're an Amazon customer and you exist there. So what I tell people, it's not as if you don't need to be there. It's probably better for you to be there, especially if you sell a commoditized good. If you're a luxury brand, it's a different story. But what I tell people is like, if you're not going to be on Amazon, like recognize that that's a choice, and recognize that like you're working against yourself. There's this concept in marketing called physical availability. So the two things, Byron Sharp writes about this in How Brands Grow, physical and mental availability, and it's really the blueprint for successfully growing any sort of brand. And physical availability, again, in the older sense, is like where you're selling in physical retail. But online, it's like physical availability is like, do you have your own website where you sell it? Is the checkout experience functional, and do you accept American Express, and do you offer 0% financing, right? All these things reduce the friction to physically buy the product. But then like beyond that, it's, do you sell on Amazon? Do you sell on target.com? All these different things. And if you maximize your physical availability, you are theoretically making it easier for your customers to buy. And it's not always the right thing to do, but you need to be careful about like how you choose to limit some of those types of roadblocks.
So if you are looking at, this might be like the number 2P, where the placement, we're talking about the placement of physical products and how we can eliminate the friction from point A to point B for buying. When we start looking at price, I think it's a topic that people will, I remember there was a conversation I had with one client. We talked about Alex Ramosi, the story Burn the Bridges from ancient Rome, I think, where there's no going back. And the guy was, and I told the story, and he's like, well, do you have the data to know if you can go forward and back? Because it's good on paper, but do you know will you succeed? Did you do the research? What if that guy is, he's very brave and it's a good story, but like, let's talk business.
Yeah.
Like, do you know if you succeed? What are some of the advices that you give, or the strategy that you, when it comes to pricing, how to properly price so that you don't do a race to the bottom on Amazon, or if you're like a D2C brand?
I think price is the most overlooked of the 4 Ps. And look, that's where your margin comes from, right? Like we're all here to make a profit. And I'll give you this example. Like, I don't know, every e-commerce brand on the planet, you go to their website and they're giving you 10% off, sign up for their email. Has anyone ever tested the incremental impact of giving away 10% of your top line revenue for your first customers, and theoretically more because people are just putting in a second email address?
Yes.
It's common, and people believe this is the D2C marketers, right? Like, you go, there's this whole community of people and they have their conferences and they have their Reddit threads, and they're like, well, if you're not doing the conventions of giving 10% off, like you're going to lose out on conversion rate. But like my take on that is like, yeah, but you have no idea if that 10% is actually eating away at your profits or driving conversion rate. Because I've never seen someone actually publish results on that study. And because people think, oh, it's just 10%, like who cares? It's not 10%. If you have 35% profit margins, which is like kind of a standard for, let's say, apparel, 10% of your top line revenue is actually like half of your profit that you're actually getting, minus your cost of goods sold. So you're just giving away all of your contribution margin without really ever challenging it. And so this is where it's like, we're just so easy to give away price because we think that like lower price leads to a higher conversion rate, and I need to get customers, and then we'll monetize on the back end. It's just not a way to build a business. And I think like this entire industry has sort of been ruined by like the influx of venture capital funding that hit e-commerce brands, let's say over the last, like really during COVID, where like all VCs cared about, and especially if a company was like trying to IPO, all they cared about was like the number of customers they had, like historically. So they were like, I wouldn't say no. Most brands that you know of today that like really made a name for themselves, in the last 6-7 years, they didn't care so like they were willing to give away stuff for free or at a loss, because the only thing they cared about was like proving to their investors that they can actually get the sale. But that's not really how you build a profitable business over the long term. I mean, look at like a company like Allbirds. Like they blew up and then I don't know, are they even still around? They had that model. They got flush with VC funding and now like they're kind of gone, right? And that's what happens because people just give away their contribution margin. They don't really build a brand, and that's what happens. But like on the pricing side, I think that there's also this like concept of, if I lower my price, the conversion rate's going to go up because you think like people are rational. But I've seen plenty of brands where the opposite is true, where we test a higher price, you increase price by 20% and conversion rate goes up because there was a perception that you're somehow higher quality than the rest. So there's like all these different tactics and all these different tests you can run. And price is the most important thing because like the real goal of marketing is to be able to create demand for your products in such a way that you don't need to discount. Because like if people really care about, I don't know, name a brand that doesn't do sales, right? Like there are a million of them, but like let's say it's even Peloton. I don't know why that comes to mind, but like let's say it's like, well, listen, Peloton's not doing great as a company right now, but like theoretically, it's like I really want Peloton. I really want a Peloton, and they're not running a 15% off or a 20% off sale. But like if the demand for that product is so high, like who cares? Like people are still going to buy it. So that's really the goal of marketing, is to create the demand for your product so that you don't need to be in a race for the bottom. But the problem is so many people are they just care about the short term. So they make all those sacrifices.
I remember this was like years ago. I used to fix watches and jewelry when I was like in high school. And one of the places fixing watches and jewelry, you sell some stuff, they had pens. And like you said, there was a brand, Mont Blanc. They never gave a discount. Like there was none. I had Cross pens, I had Mont Blanc and some other ones in between. Mont Blanc never on discount. Never. Like you want like graduation. That's when people bought a lot of pens for like lawyers and for craft. And no discounts. Valentine's, no discounts. New Year's, never. And the demand was ridiculously high. Like at that time, we're talking like $500 for a pen, which was like in my mind like shocking. But the demand was there. The marketing was done properly in a way that it created that demand.
Yeah. I didn't want to use like Gucci or Rolex as my example, because I think that's like the standard. And we work with we worked with a bunch of different high-end jewelry brands that fit into that category. But Mont Blanc is interesting. So one of our longest tenured clients is a brand called Pen Boutique, and they exclusively sell high-end pens. Like you're not getting this like ballpoint pen on there, right? It's like their average order value, I won't give it away, but it's high, and they don't run sales, and it's a really good business to be in. Yeah, Mont Blanc's good stuff.
Now, when we're looking at this and someone's hearing this, like, man, this sounds fantastic. It's what I want to do. How do you create that demand with marketing, with paid ads? What are some of the strategies that people start to implement? Like, okay, look, this is what we're going to do because we want to build a brand that is sustainable for the long run.
So I think the first thing is that you need to be able to balance short-term performance with long-term sustainable growth. So, and I have to say that because if I don't, most business owners or CMOs or whatever are going to tune out, because like everyone just thinks, oh yeah, like all this like brand building stuff sounds great in theory. But like that's not, we don't have the budget for that, or like we're not there yet. There's an underlying expectation with any brand that like you need to have profitable performance advertising channels optimized to be able to squeeze as much profit in the short term as possible. That's a given. And that's really where we cut our teeth as an agency. By the way, like most of what we've done is still like over the last 10 years is optimize like bottom funnel Google and Meta campaigns. And I'm the first to tell you that the opportunity to just like, build a 7 or 8 figure business by like squeezing the bottom of the funnel for all it's worth, like it doesn't exist anymore. It did when Google was new and Meta was new and there were no restrictions on any of these platforms and there was little competition and prices were much lower. But you can't now. Like if you really want to build a profitable business, you need to look full funnel and you need to be able to think long term. And again, that's coming from somebody who grew up in performance marketing. So there's a given that there's a focus on short-term profitability. And the word I like to think about is, the word I like to use is guardrails. Like it's not as if it's like, I need to hit this profitability benchmark or else whatever. It's really like, what are the kind of the areas in which we need to stay within? But as far as growth and building a brand and building emotional resonance and brand salience and all that good stuff, it comes down to the creative, and it comes down to being able to create an emotional connection with people. And it's not just like making people laugh and people cry. It's just evoking some sort of feeling. Entertainment is like being entertained is an emotion, and you can build a brand off of being entertaining. Fear is an emotion. Trust is an emotion. Now, these things aren't won overnight with $10,000 spent in meta ads. And it's certainly not built with like whatever crappy creatives your like freelance graphic designers making. It comes from like having a real creative strategy. And like I look, the biggest advertisers in the world are insurance brands. There is nothing more important. I wouldn't say nothing. Few things are more important than like what you choose to protect you and your family, right? And choosing an insurance provider is a big decision. But the majority of the money spent in insurance ads are for a cartoon Gecko and Flo, who's like a comedian, and those comedy sketches about how we're all becoming our parents. Isn't that interesting? And like, shouldn't we all learn from that? That like some of the most important, you would think, rational decisions that we make as consumers, which is like choosing, let's say in this case, a car insurance provider. It's a big decision that we should be like carefully considering. But the majority of the money spent on advertising for those brands are for things that are intended to make us laugh. Or it's like, oh, that Gecko's kind of cute. And it's because it works. And there are actually like, and you would think, oh, there's not that many car insurance brands. There's more than 5,000 car insurance options in the United States. Now, if you were to make a list, you'd probably only be able to think of 5.
Yeah.
Why? Because those 5 brands are really good at creating that emotional resonance. And it's not that they're convincing you to go with Geico or go with Allstate, but they're ensuring that when it's time for you to choose a car insurance brand, they remain in your consideration set. So maybe you are, like maybe there is someone down the street from you and it's one of those smaller shops that offers really great insurance. You're going to consider them up against a brand like Geico. And Geico wouldn't be in the room if not for the Gecko. It's not because they convinced you that they have the best that they have the best insurance or the lowest insurance. It's because they're just in your brain because over the course of years they've been really consistent with their advertising and they've had like, I don't know, the caveman ads from when I was a kid and like the Gecko and all this other stuff. Like they're just kind of, think of a car insurance brand. I don't know, Geico. How did they earn that place in your brain? Because of emotional based advertising. And that's really the thing. It's like, it's not one overnight. And unfortunately, like the average tenure of a chief marketing officer is 2 years. And that's generally not enough time to like really build emotional resonance with your audience and be able to see the results over time. But if you really want to build a sustainable brand, look, you don't need to be Geico. You don't need to be taking billboards out everywhere and massive like Super Bowl commercials. You can do this at a small scale. But the thing is, like, I've worked with so few small to medium sized businesses that are even considering this as an option. If you think about something like characters, this is my favorite like thing, by the way. Like I think the biggest untapped resource right now are AI generated characters that can represent your brand. It's essentially free to create, right? And it's like you think of a character like the Gecko or Toucan Sam, Tony the Tiger, or whatever, you name it, right? Nobody does it. Like small brands don't do it because maybe they think it's not for them. They don't see the value. Maybe they think it's too cute, too like kitschy, whatever. But you can do it. And maybe you're only targeting a pool of 500,000 people. That's your total addressable market for a small business. And like you have like a character that stands out and is like the face of your brand and it's distinctive. That's the most incredible. And like that's like kind of the basis of your meta campaigns. That's the best way in the world to stand out. And nobody's doing it. So like, again, this goes back like traditional marketing principles, right? I'm mentioning a lot of like old school brands that come back, but these things really do make an impact. They drive that emotions. Things like cute animals are the most powerful. There's actually like the Ehrenberg Bass Institute has published paper after paper on this, that the most effective like advertising they've seen across like every vertical are cute animals and ads. But like you sound like a moron if you're like, you know, if a CEO is like pounding their fist on the table and they're like, our sales are down. And the agency is like, we need more cute animals in the ads. Like you sound like a moron. But that's really what like gets resonance with consumers. And that's what actually drives the needle over the long term. Problem is it takes a long time to get there. So that's really what works.
It's as you were saying that, I one thing that came to mind that I'm like, I use this every Wednesday, which is the Geico commercial with the camel hump day. I still make that joke.
Oh my God, so good, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That ad must be 15, 20 years old now. Like,
and I just remembered it's a Geico ad, but the camel, the Mike, like that's hump day. That's a Geico commercial.
That was so good. Such a good ad. And so different and so dumb. But like, guess what? It works. But like again, like not and again, not all emotional ads need to be cute or loving or funny or whatever. Like we're working with a roofing company right now. They serve their national roofing brand, or they're in 14 markets, so semi-national. And Nashville is one of the markets they serve. And the Nashville market, so we did a bunch of research on this, and they're particularly sensitive to, or sensitive to like roofers or contractors in general, because the last couple of years, Nashville has just been ravaged by different storms and a lot of tornadoes. And sometimes like these tornadoes are coming back to back. So people don't even have a chance to like repair their homes or like get their stuff together. And all of a sudden it's like another one's coming, it comes out of nowhere and it just destroys the neighborhood. So it's like a very tense market to be providing this sort of service in. And so like we've leaned into messaging on response time. And it's like, we're going to be there in 6 hours. And all of our ads talk about that. And again, that sounds like a more rational feature benefit, but it really isn't, because there's nothing more emotional than the trust of the roof over your head. And if you know that it's like, okay, like I have this brand's phone number, I chose them, they put this roof up, and I have their phone number on my fridge. And if something hits the fan, they're going to be here in 6 hours. And like, that is such, like that evokes a sense of like, oh, that really resonates with that audience. And that's really what we tap into with our messaging there. Like, you know, safe flight repair, safe flight replace. Like, think about that jingle. That sounds like somebody sighing of relief. It's like safe flight repair, safe flight replace. It's like an exhale, right? Like that's a smart jingle. It's not just that it's the words and the copy, it's the way in which you say the message. And that's what makes a good advertisement. It's not just about like writing the right copy. It's everything surrounding it in a way that makes the emotional resonance with the consumer.
When someone is looking at this and like, these are good things that, you know, they're learning. They've tried a bunch of stuff like the gimmicky stuff and it didn't work, like high contrast colors or whatever. And things are, like I said, gimmicky in the sense that there are trends. Eventually the algorithm fixes it to kind of nerf it, or people just don't react to it anymore and they kind of move forward. What are some of the placements that you see that companies are spending most of their ad spend that is working really good? I know Meta is someone that, at least in my world, it was shocking when I heard like is the biggest place where people spend the most. But when you think of it from like what we do for posting social media content, TikTok or LinkedIn, no one really posts or focuses on Facebook or Meta on Instagram. But ad spend, I keep hearing Meta is the place you want to be. What do you see?
Yeah, I agree. You know, like there's so much hype around like TikTok. Everyone wants to chase the shiny thing, but like there are brands that do really well on all these niche platforms. I've seen a lot of brands do really well on Reddit advertising. And we work across all these platforms, right? There is nothing like Meta, right? Like it's so incredible for so many reasons. Like first of all, they own both Facebook and Instagram, and that is 85%. So there's an amazing podcast called Acquired. If you've never listened to it, they've really blown up, and they do these really in-depth, deep dives into company stories. And like some of them are 3-5 hours. They just released 2-part series on Google. They did one on Meta, and they opened the show by talking about how there has never been a government or utility or company that in the history of mankind that reaches more people every day than Meta. And they went back, and it's like the Roman Empire at its height did not, like the percentage of the world population. It's like how many? 8 billion people, whatever. Like they reach like 6 billion people a day on Meta platforms, and no other entity in the history of mankind has ever reached more than 80% of the global population. So just like with that fact alone is like, well, why wouldn't you start by thinking about Meta as a great place to advertise? Like it literally reaches everybody, you know, with some small exceptions. So just by that, but like, look, they've made a ton of amazing investments in their AI matching algorithms and the way that they do reporting and the way they do audience insights and the way they figure out placements. It's really good. Like they've really doubled down. I mean, you talk about the burn the bridges or the burn the ships mentality. You know, the funniest thing is like, in 2022, so it was it was October. So iOS, if you don't know about what's gone on in the digital advertising space, I'll give you like a quick little synopsis here. Meta advertising in Google like really grew, let's say from 2014 to 2020, 2021, right? It was just like an upward roller coaster, and COVID did a lot of great things for propelling that forward. But then Apple released their IDFA updates, the ATT in 2021. So this is like the iOS 14 stuff that like made it really difficult. Took Facebook advertising, Meta advertising out by the knees. Everything that you relied on from a paid media perspective of finding audiences, getting the right ads in front of people, being able to monetize, being able to track conversions was just completely obliterated. And the markets hated it. And so in their Q4 earnings report for Q3, which was reported on, I want to say October 24th, 2022, Zuckerberg stood in front of Wall Street and like reported about how like ATT is kind of fresh and whatever, but we're making a bunch of internal investments in AI. And we're going to rebuild this platform from the ground up, and it's going to be AI first. And that's why, all these capital expenditures. And the market hated it. And they were like, this is all nonsense. We don't believe in it. AI isn't going to fix anything. And then a month later, ChatGPT comes out and completely writes the script on AI. At that time, I forget exactly what the price looked like, but like the Meta stock price was at like $60. Now it's what, $700, whatever it is. This is just 2 to 3 years ago. But it was like they were investing heavily in AI before anybody else was, before it was cool. And that's why the platform today is just dynamite. It's incredible. So it's a great place to find your audience and be able to monetize. All these platforms have their place. Again, like there's more research on this that shows that cross-platform media plans tend to outperform singular channel media plans. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a larger budget. If you're investing in 2 to 3 different platforms, let's say it's Google, let's say it's Meta, and let's say it's Pinterest, you're probably generating more profit and more brand resonance than if you're spending that same budget just in Google and Meta. Of course, you don't want to stretch yourself too thin. Yeah. There's like some guardrails in there that you would have to work on, but being diversified across a broad spectrum of media increases, we're talking about before, place, right? And promotional strategy, going back to the 4 Ps. So diversifying your media plans and being able to get in front of your audience at a higher frequency is generally a good thing for advertising. So yeah, there's a lot of great places to invest your budgets.
When we're talking about investing the budgets and looking at these platforms, something that you were mentioning here, the cross platforms and kind of switching in between one place to another place to third place. I've noticed, and we talked about this like off camera, I've noticed that you can look at something on Google and then you whip out TikTok and then you would see an ad for the thing that you were looking on Google. And then maybe you switch to, I don't know, Apple Podcasts, and you might, or Spotify, you might hear an ad about the same thing. These platforms are not connected. How do you, as a business owner or as a company, how do you do all these things? How do you achieve that kind of cross-platform advertising? Like, how does it work, basically?
So it's an amazing question. Where are you on the conspiracy theory that Meta listens to your phone?
Like 99% sure, yes.
So this is what I say all the time. Like, I don't think they're doing it, right? Everyone's like, oh, they're listening to me because I'm seeing ads. It's because that's how good the AI is. Like they don't need to listen to your conversations, because Meta and Google and then you kind of go down the line there. Like the audience matching AI is so powerful, because the thing is, like, you might not, like, what happens often is you're in a social setting and it's like, I just got this new Yeti water bottle and I love it. And you're like, that's awesome. And now all of a sudden you see an ad for a Yeti water bottle. It's not because it picked up on us listening. It's because like Meta understood that like you and I might be similar people, we might fit into similar cohorts, and also was smart enough to know that we were in the same place at the same time. We were probably talking about a recent purchase. What do people do when they get together? They talk about brands and things that they buy. So like, yeah. I don't know, that's on that. But as far as to answer your question, there is a reason that Google Analytics is free. And let's just say every website that matters has the Google Analytics tag on it. Why is Google giving that away for free? Because they're using your data. So by putting the Google Analytics tag on your website, you're basically giving Google access to people that come to your website and be able to learn from them and be able to match that to other brands and other websites and other behaviors and track them across the web. So now all of a sudden, when Google has to make a prediction about an audience, well, they know exactly where they've been shopping. They know, like, it's not just about like, well, of course, Google knows what people search on Google, and they know their Gmail habits, and they know what they watch on YouTube. And they, maybe you're a Pixel user, Samsung, whatever, and maybe you use the Discover feed on Google. Like, Google owns a lot of properties, or if you use Chrome at all, which is the #1 browser, Google knows all these things to begin with. But then on top of it, every website that matters has the Google Analytics tag on it. So why is Google so good at serving ads to people who are like right in the market for that thing? Because they just know already. Like, they know what you're in the market for. Meta doesn't have the universal, ubiquitous access that Google has, but they certainly have a lot of it, because not only do a ton of people use Instagram and Facebook constantly, but most websites that matter also have the Meta Pixel. So if you're an advertiser and you have the Meta Pixel on your website, you're basically inviting your competitors to show ads to your customers. And this to me is like the most overlooked thing in digital advertising, especially like I'm constantly telling people that they need to spend more in Meta just because, or take the Pixel off the site entirely. Most people think that Meta is overcounting. They think that, oh, we're spending too much in Meta. They're overcounting the number of conversions. It's not as incremental as I think. And I consistently see the opposite to be true, that it's having much more of an impact on your incrementality than you are willing to give it credit for. Because the thing is, the second someone lands on your website, let's say you sell garden supplies, Meta now knows this is a person in the market for garden supplies. And you don't own the right to that data. Like, you've agreed to the terms and conditions by putting that pixel on your website. It's an exchange. You're getting their reporting mechanism in exchange for that customer data. Yeah. So now when that person opens up their Instagram feed, Meta's sending a call out to all people who want to sell ads to people in the market for garden supplies. So it's like, hey, we have a live one here. The auction goes to the highest bidder. And if your brand, your gardensupply.com, right? Like whatever, if you're not buying that placement, one of your competitors will. Or worse, Home Depot will. And why do you think you stand a chance against Home Depot? Because Home Depot has a lot of budget and they're spending a lot of it on Meta. And if you sell anything that is also sold on Amazon or Home Depot or Walmart or name your big brand, they're eating your lunch because you're not protecting the fact that you paid money for that user in the first place, right? A lot of people are like, well, Google's too expensive, right? I'm paying $5 a click on Google right now for garden supply keywords. And it's like, yeah, it is expensive. That's the market rate because Home Depot is willing to pay it. And why is Home Depot willing to pay it? Because they're also getting your customers that clicked on your ads. You can't afford to pay $5 per click if you're going to let Home Depot serve an Instagram retargeting ad to somebody that was just on your website. Like, think about the impact that has. And this is where so many people get lost. It's like, oh, well, I'm not spending money on Pinterest. It's like, well, are your competitors? Because then they're getting in front of your audience. Because Pinterest knows when somebody's in the market for whatever it is you sell. And if you're not there, the likelihood that you're going to stay in that person's consideration set decreases slightly. Doesn't mean you're off the table entirely, but that's what makes marketing so difficult, right? It's not just one thing. It's not just that I need to be price competitive. And it's not just that I have the best ads. And it's not just that I have a cool looking website or a cool logo or whatever it is and fast shipping times. You need all of those things. And then also the factor in like what else is happening in the marketplace? What are the competitors that are zapping into my potential customers' feeds in the moments before they choose me that might convince them to go elsewhere? And that's the biggest change from the analog world when books like Why We Buy were written to where it is now. Because when I'm standing in a store, I don't really have the ability to just like click a button and then transform to another store. But you can, and I'm also not getting ads for another store while I'm in the middle of shopping. But that's what happens in a digital landscape, right? While you're shopping for something, you're getting ads for a completely different business. And not enough people are thinking about that, and they're not heavily investing in retargeting enough, and that's why their overall conversion rates are not as high as they think they should be.
Two things I wanted to touch upon for Meta. One, when you talk about like the over counting all these things, I've heard it many times that people feel like again, conspiracy theories. They have like click farms because like I have XYZ clicks and I have zero conversions, and I have this much traffic and I have very little conversion. Um, what happens? Is it like a wrong setup of a campaign that people will get these like massive influxes in their numbers?
Yes, I mean, look, there's always like there's bot traffic, or whatever. It's not that like, I mean, look, maybe someone can refute this. I don't read too much into that. Um, Meta does a good job policing it. Google does a good job policing it. On Google in particular, there's like services you could sign up to kind of get rid of bot traffic. And look, it probably comes down to like, is your audience targeting good? An ad that has a good click-through rate doesn't mean it's a good ad, because it might be interesting that people are clicking on it or viewing it, engaging with it. But like, okay, well, the people that click on your ad may not be the same people that'll buy your product. So what's the difference there? And that's why like getting conversion data, this is like, I'll get technical for a second.
Yeah.
Getting high quality conversion data is the most important thing that you need to do to be able to optimize the short-term performance of your ad campaigns. This is actually good because like we spent a lot of time talking like high level top funnel stuff.
Yeah.
I'll talk performance marketing for a second. When I started in this business, very few brands like had good conversion tracking. So like basically like when someone clicked on my ad or viewed an ad, did they make a purchase? And like 10 years ago, it was really hard to like set that up. Like you needed like a competent web developer, and you need to understand like JavaScript and data layers and all these things. Now, like in Shopify, you click two buttons and you can just like connect everything. And like Salesforce integrations are amazing. Like with a lead gen company, like it's not just getting, okay, did they call my number? It's did they call the roofing company, right? But it's like you're connecting your Salesforce so that you can track the quality of the lead. Did they close into a deal? And then like at what like deal size? And like all that's really good data to then pump back into the platforms. Because again, the AI is really good. So like you're wasting your money if you're advertising on any of these platforms and you're not keeping up with the conversion tracking standards of your vertical. So if you're selling a physical good or a product, whatever, you're an e-commerce brand, and you're not optimizing for conversion value, meaning pulling in the actual dollar amount of your purchase, and your competitors, like, first of all, if you're not doing it, you shouldn't be advertising. Like you need to, because there's one thing to say, did a sale happen? Yes or no? But then it's like, well, what was the cart value? Was it $100 or was it $10? So let's say you and I are in a competitive an auction dynamic here, and I'm pumping in conversion value, and you're just optimizing for sales. So you're launching a meta campaign, and you're optimizing for maximized conversions, or what's called lowest cost is in meta. So you're basically saying, get me as many sales as possible. And we sell water bottles and coffee mugs that range from $15 to $100. What's going to end up happening is Meta's going to figure out how to get a ton of conversions for you, but it's probably going to be for lower value products, because it's the cheapest thing to buy as far as customers are, people who buy cheap things. But if I'm optimizing for value, I'm more likely to get customers. I might have fewer overall customers, but I might be selling more $100 products. And if you and I are competing against one another, I'm going to get all the good customers and you're not. Now let's change gears. Let's say we're a lead gen company. Let's say we're a plumbing company. And I have my Salesforce connected, where I'm connecting quality of leads and leads that close into a deal. And you're just optimizing for phone calls. So you're opening your Google account and you say, I want to get as many people that are looking for plumber near me, and just like phone calls. I'll rely on my sales team. Google's going to give you worse quality leads, because I'm only rewarding Google if I'm optimizing for higher quality, or if I'm gaining higher quality leads. So I'm feeding better data back into the system, which means it's going to find better cohorts of audiences and optimize every step of the funnel along the way. So it's getting more and more complex, because now you have e-commerce brands that are optimizing for profit, not just revenue. You have lead gen clients who are optimizing for deal size, not just quality of leads. So it's almost this cat and mouse game where like if you're not keeping up with what the competitors are doing as far as the data they're sending back into the systems, then you're getting the worst quality audiences to click on your ad. You're serving your ads to the worst quality people and you're getting the worst quality overall conversions. So like that to me is like a no-brainer. You have to be able to optimize that at a performance level. But yeah, like if you're getting a ton of clicks, a ton of engagement and not selling, like your product is probably bad. Or you don't have product market fit for first concept of the 4 Ps. So all those things need to be addressed.
I remember every time I'm looking for, let's say I need to find some information. So I remember probably like 6-7 months ago, it was about some AI stuff. And I downloaded a checklist. I got served so many companies that were offering checklists because that's the action that I took. But I wanted to see some stuff, like it was an N8N, like what do you need to self-host? And I'm like, okay, let me see what I need. Let me see the companies. Let me check the cost. And I kept getting ads for checklists, for AI.
That's funny.
Different companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's like B2B companies, they love the white paper download. And it's like, it's so far removed from quality customers. So yeah, you have to be really mindful of like, who are the kinds of people that are click on this ad and download this thing? Like, a lot of people, they model it off of like the historic, they have 1,000 customers and they're like, well, what are our averages? Well, we had 5,000 people download a white paper, and then of them, 1 in 5 became a customer. It's like, great, let's optimize for that. But not realizing the way the platform AI works is it's going to find people who are most likely to get that white paper download. And at a large enough scale, you're not going to repeat the same conversion rate. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse as like it tries to get the easier and easier and easier conversions. So I think like not enough people are like really thinking about that and like factoring that in and revisiting those metrics enough. And it screws a lot of people. Yeah,
it's true. And there was one of my clients, and we talked about these things. He's like, look, man, there's never a client that will download an ebook and sign with me because my dues are like 150K. It just doesn't happen. They need to meet me. They need to like meet several times. There's no here's a case study. Like, doesn't matter what you did for that. Maybe give me the phone number of that owner or partner or whatever, and I can talk with them about how does it work working with you. But clicking ebooks and downloading, when it comes to B2B and large deals, like it just doesn't work anymore. There's no trust building like that. Trust building happens. We talk, we meet, let me show what I can do, maybe a demo of the SaaS, whatever it might be. That's kind of the regular stuff. And they kind of focus on different angles. I was like, that's a very interesting approach because I've seen the download, the stuff that, like I said,
it's very tough because then they immediately go to like, we want to optimize for a demo request. But then when you play that game, you're only looking at the very bottom of the funnel, and that's where it gets really expensive, particularly with SaaS. And this is why, like, I probably shouldn't say this, but like a lot, like working with SaaS companies really frustrates me because they have these like, their CFO created a model in a spreadsheet that says like, okay, like we can afford to pay X amount, whatever for. But then but now you go to Google, you go to buy that audience on Google, and every click is $25, and like at that rate, like. The unit economics don't make sense. Like you need to be doing high reach and frequency at the middle of the funnel. Like you need to be investing in programmatic advertising and CTV and like really good like engagement based ads that are creating that emotional resonance. And you need to be able to do that and commit to it for 6 months or a year, knowing you're not going to recognize a return on that. And you need to be able to commit to that if you really want to make the unit economics work at scale. But the problem is it's like, no, we're just going to like find someone that can like make our Google ads better. It's like, you're never going to grow. Like it's just never going to work. So the expectations of that entire industry are totally misaligned.
It's interesting because everyone shoots for that. Everybody shoots for the book call. And because what I do with LinkedIn outreach, with years, it became very clear. And I was like, look, there is a world where I can take a Alex Hormozy, too good to say no to offer that you won't be able to deliver. But it's very good to get someone on a call. And then I'm going to shoot for a lower size of a company that on paper looks pretty good, but it's lower. And you will start to get calls. And that's what I had with a lot of people that are like, this is what happened to me. I want to work with you now, because there is a way, like you said, to optimize it, but it's not what you want. You want closed calls. You want clients that are true, that there is some sort of a potential. So you're not optimizing for a piece of it. You are going for that middle of the funnel where if you want to build trust, I'm sorry, but maybe you will do 50 Loom videos of your process. And yes, there will be no AI. You will say the person's name. You will go to their website. Maybe you will call them to, I did, this is the funny one. I actually had to call a person and Tiffany was the assistant, and I had to say, Tiffany, hi Tiffany. Peter, for example, he said his dog's name is such and such. He's like, great, we'll book you for. I'm like, really? That's how he's like, yeah, we get all kinds of calls, and we have a validation system. So you took the time. Sounds like you really want to do business with them. We'll schedule in.
Yeah, incredible. And it's like, be like taking the time to do that. It's rare, and most people don't see it that way. And it's like, you have to recognize. So there's another concept in marketing called the 95-5 rule. Whatever your total addressable market is, and let's say it is niche. Let's say you're a SaaS brand, and it's my total addressable market are IT related decision makers in companies that have 50 to 100 employees, right? That's a pretty big market. It's not like massive, right? We're not talking about, you're not taking on a Super Bowl ad, but you have to recognize that at no point in time are more than 5% of your market in the market for what you sell. So most brands, particularly those that are newer and haven't cut their teeth in like brand building at all, and they think that I'm just gonna find a Google Ads hack or LinkedIn hack to grow my business, they're only optimizing for that 5%. So now you have most verticals, most competitors in a vertical fighting over the 5%, which is dramatically driving up those costs. So when people talk about, oh, LinkedIn is so expensive and Google is so expensive, like I can't afford to do this anymore. It's like, yeah, of course, because everyone in this space is fighting over just 5% of the total addressable market. And the thing is, like, once you think about that 95%, everything becomes so dramatically cheaper because the competition isn't doing it, right? So like, advertising is bought and sold at market rate. And if everyone is investing 80 to 90% of their budget at the 5%, that means that the cost to get in front of the 95% is relatively, like, not just cheaper. It's like, it's a bargain to get in front of them. Like, YouTube ads are basically free, right? Like, it costs money, but like, because not enough people are like recognizing the value of YouTube advertising, it might as well be free. And the thing is, people don't realize that 5% is fluid. Every day, every week, that someone that's in market now is not in market, and someone that wasn't is. And if you get in front of that 95% and get an emotional resonating ad, and you make an impact and you get your message across, that the moment that person enters the 5% where they're in market, not a guarantee, but again, you're gonna be in their consideration set. And this is why, like, I tell this story all the time. I got served Monday.com ads for a year on YouTube. And they were like simple, like stupid YouTube ads, but I remembered it, right? They were distinctive because the colors and fast pace, whatever. And I never knew anything about Monday.com. And at some point in, like, I don't know, 2018, we needed to get a new project management software. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to look at Asana, I'm going to look at Basecamp, and I'll look at Monday.com. And I ultimately chose Monday.com, like, not because of, I don't think it was because they're advertising, maybe it was. I liked the features and whatever, but like, they were down to the final two. And they would never have earned their seat at the table if they didn't spend a year advertising their messaging to me on YouTube ads, which again were free. And it's because when it comes to, if I open up Google right now and do a search for project management software, I'm going to see 10 different brands. Most of them I've never heard of before. Maybe I know a couple of them. And I'll click on any of those ads is going to cost them $30 each. You cannot afford to spend $30. Like, if you're, honestly, I know this isn't great content for the podcast, but I am really interested in this. Project management software. I'll tell you, and I'm in the space. I know a lot of project management softwares. Monday.com. Rike. W-R-I-K-E. Number 2, Pipedrive I've heard of.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Rike before. If I click on this ad, which I won't do because I'm a nice person, that's going to cost them $30. $25 at least. They don't have a chance because I've never heard of them before. And I've heard of Monday.com and I've heard of Pipedrive. And as I scroll down this list, there's some organic, whatever things that I've heard of before. But like, Rike does not stand a chance to ever profitably convert customers just buying Google ads. If they ever want to do so, and again, maybe I'm not their target audience, they need to be able to invest in other types of reach and frequency channels if they ever want to stand a chance against these other big players.
Because that's the approach that you're talking to the 95, because eventually some of them will move to the 5, but it was chasing that quick win. Now, Patrick, let's say someone is listening to this and like, this is fantastic, man. My mind is blown. How do people get a hold of you to work with you?
Well, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Patrick Gilbert. Connect with me there. Again, that's top of funnel, right? You want to engage, you're not ready to bring on a new agency. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content. I engage a lot with different people there. So find me on LinkedIn. That'd be great. If you are interested in agency services, and whether it's consulting, strategy development, or full-blown strategy and execution, adventureppc.com is our email address, is our URL, or look us up, Adventure Media. You'll find us. And fill out a form and contact us, and we'd love to chat. But yeah, like anyway, like connect on LinkedIn is probably the best place. But if you're interested, give us a call.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for all of this. This was we went top level, we went nitty gritty. So I love that we covered a lot of stuff, because I think there's a lot of things that at least that I can take and learn from, and start applying right away, especially that emotional stuff. Like I remember Geico that Wednesday ad for so many years. So maybe some of that stuff I can start implementing into branding, because it is very, very good. So you open my mind to stuff like that. So I appreciate the time.
Love it.
Thank you so much for everything, and I wish you all the best.